Hello students, this is the sixth module of our course. In today's session, we will look into two important aspects of GST. These aspects are advantages and limitations of GST. We all know that GST was one of India's biggest tax reforms. We will explore why it is beneficial and some challenges it still faces. Let us get a clear picture of how GST affects our economy. Now, let me tell you the topics I will cover in this video. Two topics are covered in this module. One is the advantages and second, the disadvantages of GST. For a better understanding, we are looking at the advantages and disadvantages of GST from three different categories, that are consumers, businesses, and the government. First, we have to look at the advantages to consumers. GST is advantageous to customers in many ways. First advantage is that it eliminates cascading effect. That is, tax on tax, where different taxes are added to the cost at each stage of production cycle. GST has reduced multiple layers of tax structure and replaced the indirect tax structure with one tax. This has helped customers to get goods and services at lesser price than before. For example, if I bought a laptop before introducing GST, I pay excise duty at the manufacturing stage, VAT at the state level, and even service tax also. This will increase the price of the product. Now we have to pay only one tax, that is GST, and it avoids cascading effect of indirect tax. The second advantage is that it has significantly transformed the business environment in India. One of its key impacts is enhancing competition among businesses, which leads to better product quality and competitive pricing. The next advantage is that with GST, the consumers are aware of the exact amount of their tax component in their purchase or when you enjoy a service from the service provider. Moreover, GST brings transparency to the taxation system, making consumers aware of the exact tax component in their purchases. The next advantage of GST system in India is that it has introduced a uniform taxation structure, which allows consumers to buy goods across states without additional tax burdens. This is possible through one nation, one tax, avoiding interstate taxes, encouraging seamless trade and e-commerce across the globe. Now, let us look at the disadvantages of GST to consumers. The first disadvantage is that some luxury items are charged at a higher rate, that is 28%. For example, high-end cars, five-star accommodation, air conditioners, etc. The objective of charging luxury items at a higher rate is to promote equitable taxation, discouraging non-essential spending while ensuring revenue generation for the government. The second limitation is that the introduction of GST in India led to short-term price increases for some products and services. This was due to several factors, including changes in tax rates, compliance adjustments, and supply chain restructuring. For example, services like telecom, banking, and insurance were taxed at 15% earlier, but moved to 18% under GST. The next limitation is the G multiplier tax structure of GST. For example, for plain biscuits, the GST is 5%, but cream biscuits are charged at 12%. Similarly, milk is exempted from GST, but flavored milk is charged 12% under GST. Now, let us look at the advantages of GST to businesses. GST has streamlined India's taxation system by replacing multiple indirect taxes with a single unified tax, making compliance easier for businesses and ensuring transparency in tax collection. Similarly, before the introduction of GST, interstate trade in India was heavily restricted due to multiple indirect taxes and regulatory barriers. GST has successfully removed barriers to interstate trade, creating a unified market where businesses can operate across state lines efficiently. The removal of entry taxes and other barriers has led to cost savings, faster logistics, and better business opportunities across India. The third advantage of GST is that the input tax credit or ITC mechanism, which allows businesses to claim a credit for the taxes paid on their purchases. This reduces their overall tax liability, ensuring that tax is paid only on the value added at each stage of the supply chain. The next advantage is with the GST registration. Businesses with an annual turnover exceeding rupees 40 lakh for goods and rupees 20 lakh for services must register under GST. This ensures that more businesses come under the tax net, reducing tax evasion. The third advantage is that the introduction of GST in India has significantly improved the efficiency of the transportation and logistics sector by elimination of interstate border checkposts, which has led to faster movement of goods and reduced logistic cost. Now, let us look at the disadvantages of GST to businesses. They have to maintain digital records, file multiple returns, and use GST compliant software. These mandatory things are objected by businesses. The next limitation is that the delay in getting input tax credit refunds can create problems for their working capital. Under GST regime in India, businesses can claim a refund of input tax credit, which helps to reduce their overall tax liability. However, delays in processing this ITC refunds can significantly impact a business's working capital. The next limitation is related to the small businesses. The implementation of GST in India has mandated a shift towards digital compliance, requiring businesses to register, file returns, and maintain records online. While this transition aims to streamline taxation, it poses significant challenges for small businesses with limited technological resources. The next limitation is with regard to classifying goods and services. Businesses need to classify goods and services correctly, leading to disputes and compliance issues. Now, let us come to the third category we are discussing, that is the government. The first advantage is that better compliance and digital tracking is possible for the government, which will reduce tax evasion. A notable development in this regard is the introduction of the track and trace mechanism. The next advantage is that a unified tax system reduces the administrative burden of managing multiple indirect taxes. The introduction of GST in India marked a significant shift from a convoluted indirect tax system to a unified tax framework. This transformation has substantially reduced the administrative burden associated with managing multiple indirect taxes. The next advantage is that a transparent and efficient tax system encourages trade and investment. By replacing multitude of indirect taxes with a single tax structure, GST has unified India's market, facilitating the seamless movement of goods and services across state borders. This unification has reduced complexities and barriers, making it easier for businesses to operate nationwide. The next advantage is that GST encourages e-governance and financial inclusion. The Aadhaar system has been instrumental in streamlining GST registration and verification processes, reducing bureaucratic hurdles. The adoption of UPI has simplified digital transactions, facilitating seamless tax payments and refunds under GST, thereby promoting financial inclusion. Similarly, GST supports Make in India initiative. The implementation of GST has significantly bolstered the Make in India initiative by streamlining the tax structure and enhancing the manufacturing sector's competitiveness. Now, let us come to the last topic of our discussion, that is, the limitations of GST to government. Firstly, the implementation of GST marked a significant shift from a complex system of multiple indirect taxes to a unified tax structure. While GST aimed to streamline taxation and boost economic efficiency, it also led to short term revenue losses for some states during the transition period. Secondly, the implementation of GST is aimed to streamline the taxation system. However, challenges persist in the timely processing of ITC and export refunds, impacting businesses, cash flows, and operational efficiency. The last limitation is exclusion of petroleum products, alcohol for human consumption from GST framework. This has led to continued tax complexities, undermining the objective of a unified tax system. I hope you got a good insight on the topic advantages and limitations of GST. Thank you for your patient listening. Happy learning. Until we meet with the next module, thank you.